The reason there are very, very few women artists in the world is because women feel that they can't do their art and have children.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step.
Just let go.
Hey everyone, so we have my mentor Suzy Batiz and her creative director Nicole on the show today. They have done something that I have yet to see personally, and I am on this kick that seeing is believing. They have created a scenario within Poo Pourri, their company, or Suzy's company, that enabled Nicole to bring her baby back into the office after her 3-month maternity leave. So it wasn't just a nursery and, Nicole got to see the baby every once in a while. It was truly a scenario where Lucy, Nicole's child, was integrated into the office, into the experience of the day, in meetings, in Nicole's office. So Lucy was a part of the team. And this is extreme innovation. It shouldn't be, but it is. This is not happening very much, if at all, in our society. And I truly believe that this is something that will benefit everyone at a macro level if we can start adopting these experiments that they've done. And that's the key is Suzy and Nicole talk through how they even arrived at this experiment, how the conversation started, what that sounded like, and if you are getting ready to have a baby or if you have a company and you're trying to figure out how to potentially not lose talent, employees, because they're going to have to make a choice, you should really consider implementing some of these ideas. And again, they're safe experiments. And if you call it that, then you can't fail. And you also don't have, nothing's permanent. You don't have to stick with it forever. So you can learn the details, the ins and outs of how all of this went down. And as someone who's just had a baby and is experimenting herself with my alternative maternity leave, I realize now how important this is and how many women are leaving the workforce because they feel like they have to choose. Something that Suzy says right out of the gate, and she said this to me before in person, is that I've asked her, can you have it all? When Lincoln was in the NICU, she came to visit several times, and she said, no, you can't have it all the way we've been doing it. It has to change. I get chills saying that because it's so true. It is possible to start meshing and blending these worlds, and it's actually crucial and critical. You can have it all if you change the way things are being done. And I just hat tip to this case study that you are about to hear. Share it with anyone who you think could benefit, please, please, because our world will benefit from more things and situations like this. Here is Suzy and Nicole. We tackle the most taboo topics on the Why Not Now show. Oftentimes, you're hearing guests share things they've never shared before. In the spirit of things we don't typically talk about, you should know that the Why Not Now show is supported by Poo Pourri, the original before you go toilet spray. It's magic. My friends at Poo Pourri have literally taken the smell out of you-know-what. This pure blend of essential oils stops bathroom odor before it begins. Visit poopourri.com, and Why Not Now listeners get 20% off with code WHYNOTNOW. That's all one word. And you can hear the story about Poo Pourri in our interview with founder Suzy Batiz. That's Why Not Now, episode 28. Poo Pourri is also available at Bed Bath & Beyond. Usually we start with a question of, can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you asked yourself, why not now? And Suzy, I don't know if that would be considered a why not now for you, but I don't know if you would even consider this an experiment, what you did with this kind of alternative approach to having Lucy in the office. And would you say it was an intentional experiment?
I think so. I mean, I was really one of the first employees to do it, especially at a VP level, to have a baby and come back. So yes, this was a first for us. We had done it a few different other ways with employees where they transition back, where they don't fully come back it's not as harsh of a line of you're with your baby all week and then you come back to the office every day. So we've done that successfully with some other employees where their first week back, they just came in one day, the next week came in 2 days. So it wasn't such a harsh line.
Was this an intentional conversation that you had ahead of time, like before Lucy was even born, or how did this even come up? Because I think so many women and companies are trying to figure out how they might be able to approach the motherhood corporate or motherhood employee blend a little more naturally. And you've done something here, and I believe seeing is believing. So you actually have this, experiment under your belt. So how did it even get started?
I don't remember. What I remember is that Nicole was supposed to be coming back. And what I know is that one of the biggest, and Amy, you know this, one of the biggest remorses that I've had was actually leaving my children, especially when they were really young. I never got maternity leave with Cassidy. So I never took that, 3 months off that most people do. And it's like, still I get weepy thinking about it. And, you just can't get that time back. And that's also not enough time. When my boys were small, I had a nanny that after, the 3 or 4 months that I took off, kind of worked with me in the office. And that felt really good. But then that was the abusive marriage where I, had to get a real job, and that was a real job, but I didn't have the flexibility. So I had to go back to work. I went back to working 80 hours a week and leaving my kids with sitters. And just for me, it's always been just something I truly regret. And I remember you're about to come back, and I remember saying, why don't we get a nanny for a couple months or something? And because I didn't even know if I wanted Nicole to come back. And she's probably the most valuable asset in our company. But thinking of having to leave Lucy was just too much because I love you. And I was like, I don't know if I can let her do that. I don't know if I can say, yeah, come back and leave Lucy. So, it's been something that's been on my heart and my mind a lot. You can hear I get really teary. It's like, and you had asked me, Amy, you had said, can you have it all? And I told you, no, I don't believe we can. Not the way we've been doing it. I think that we are really not serving children in the world. In Canada, they give you 2 years, the government. And I think it's really important for child development. If you read Dr. Gabor Mate, he says ADD is caused from the lack of attention from parents. And it's pretty rad. I think that we've gotten ourselves into a culture of go, 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 and we don't stop and slow down. So anyway, for me, just to think of Nick coming back, and I love her so much, even though she's so valuable, I was like, I don't even know if I can participate in this, right? Because I'm closer to her than are most of our employees that have come back. So I said, why don't we get you a nanny for a couple months? And Nicole just, she cleaned out her office. She had Sydney come in,
Yeah, I think I remember coming to you because I had started putting together my maternity leave plan of how kind of who would step up, who do we need in my time being gone. And I think that was when it became real to me of, oh, yes, I'm coming back after all. Like I have my plan for when I'm gone, but what about the plan for when I come back? And there was some point, I think I was bringing Lucy up to the office to meet everybody, where Suzy and I sat down, and I remember being so nervous of just how I don't know. I've never done this before. Suzy had never done this before. I remember being really nervous, not even knowing what to ask for. And Suzy really came to the table with the meat of the solution, which was, Nicole, you don't have to choose. Because I was going through, okay, do I split my time at the office and work from home certain days? What childcare options do I look into? Do my husband and I talk about him staying home? And I was trying to come up with all these solutions that required sacrifice and a splitting of Nicole, the employee, and Nicole, the mom. And then Suzy said, well, what if you brought her here? And I was like, that's an option. Yes. 100% yes.
Why not?
Why not? And yeah, my brain was going, oh, but what if she cries? What if she's loud? What if she's a distraction? And Suzy said, let's just give it a shot and see how it goes. Let's try it. We haven't tried it. Let's go for it. It was surprisingly easy.
It was not even easy. It was so natural. What's so weird, it's like it wasn't even. And I remember Rachel, one of our girl who heads up PR, she said, I couldn't believe, she came from New York, fancy agency that had a 10-minute breastfeeding room, and she goes, I remember I walked in and Nicole's sitting at the table in a meeting breastfeeding. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, it was such a shock to me.
Yeah.
But it felt so natural.
Yeah.
Like it never felt like, oh, Nicole's in the room pumping, or Nicole's in the room with Lucy, or Lucy's in the office and it's a distraction. Actually, I think dogs are a bigger distraction than Lucy was.
I was just thinking that, actually.
We have dogs in our office a lot.
Yeah.
They're I think more distracting. And it just works so beautifully. And I do believe not only was it not distracting, I believe it actually that Lucy brought a bunch of energy into our office that you can't you can't replace that. It's like she put in some positive energy in our office.
So Lucy's been, she was probably up here for a good 10 to 11 months, almost the full first year of her life. And as she became more mobile and became a toddler, she's now at home with my husband. But we have multiple layers at our office, and she would go upstairs and people would request for Lucy to come see them. People still are like, when is Lucy going to come back? We miss her. She'd get passed around at meetings. It was really great. And I wanted to touch a little bit more on, I think the breastfeeding portion was a big factor of why I'm so glad she was able to be here with me. I know I've heard stories of other women pumping and it's just such an intricate process that's different for everybody and how their milk supply works. For me, I didn't have as much success pumping. I wasn't able to get as much out. And I know from some stretches when I wasn't able to breastfeed Lucy when I was traveling or something, my supply would drop. So having Lucy here with me and being able to breastfeed her throughout the day, I don't know that I would have been able to breastfeed her as long as I had she not been here.
Interesting. That would be a huge factor for me too, Nicole. And I think, okay, everything you're sharing, if I could just even begin to put just a spotlight and share all of the messages I've gotten from people about their struggles or concerns about this very scenario of how they're going to be able to either go back or even take a maternity leave. It's such a hot topic, and what you've done together has been true innovation. And so I'm so grateful that you're sharing this and the intricacies, because these are things that are really, as you said, Suzy, they're holding us back from having it all. And I get emotional thinking about our conversations when Lincoln was in the NICU, and you were just so strongly encouraging me to take time. And I know that you were reflecting on your experience too, and I can feel it in my bones right now. And it became this this stress of I thought there was one way or the other. I really did. It's like, okay, you either do this or you do this. And what you said is we can't have it all the way we've been doing it. And so what you're doing and what you've done at Poo Pourri is you're shifting, you've experimented, you're playing with the way it's being done. And that's what I'm trying to do too. It's kind of messy and who knows what's going to happen, right, at any turn. But what I love to hear from you is there are benefits to having Lucy in the office. When she was there, I imagine the fresh eyes, the innocence, the playfulness, just the energy. And so I think it's being willing to experiment and having, a founder that says, hey, let's try it. Let's just try it. So I just applaud you. I hope that other companies that are listening and employers and employees will be brave enough to have the conversation and sit down across the table and ask questions and raise solutions and suggestions. So it's such a big factor. So tell me more. Is there, when you're looking back at the experience, how would you do it differently, or do you plan to continue? What advice would you give? I've been told to never ask 3 questions in one, and I just did that, so I'm a terrible interviewer now, but just tell me more.
Well, I one thing is I wouldn't change anything. I loved it. And we miss her.
I know.
Yeah, that's why I get a little weepy too. It's like, to me, there was zero downside on this side as far as being an employer. I don't see anything that I never, ever, I have literally felt dogs have been distracting and told them they can't come to the office. And I never, ever, ever felt that with Lucy or with you. I never felt that. And I know you, like your work never, there was zero sacrifice as far as from my perspective of being an employer. I don't feel that Nicole's attention was split, that, I felt, and you're, she's a high paid in our company, salaried person. So I know sometimes when a company's hiring, have someone that's a higher pay, they are expecting a lot out, right? It's like, and I'll just say, like, nothing slipped with you. It was just, you were there with every meeting, breastfeeding, pumping, and so much so, Nicole can tell you that we are looking at, a few times what did pop into my head, I'm like, should I be looking into liability? Like there was a couple, and that would just pop in every once in a while, and I was like, oh, it's just so good. I didn't even worry about it. It was just, I think, a fear thought that popped in. But now we are looking at, Nicole came in the other day, and I loved what she said. We have 2 women out on maternity leave now. And she goes, yeah, we need to bust that wall out and build a nursery. I was like, oh, we're building a nursery. She's like, well, yeah. I'm like, what a great idea.
Yeah, I love it.
I have the luxury of having my own space in the Poo Pourri office, and a lot of the other spaces are open concept, and we've got 2 out on maternity leave, as Suzy said, and somebody pregnant. Yeah. And, I'm thinking about a second at some point. So I would just love for them to also have that experience that I had. I found that I was much more present here. I think had Lucy not been here, my mind would also have maybe been at home. And it just wasn't, I was able to fully be present here at the office because I knew Lucy was okay. I knew I would be able to feed her. I could provide for her as a mother when needed throughout the day. I would work through it. I had one of those nursing pillows that I would put in my lap, and I'd be nursing Lucy, answering emails at the same time. I mean, it didn't slow me down. And I actually feel like my mind was able to keep going at the same speed because it wasn't split and in 2 places at once.
I think that's such a good point.
I think an important part of that is there are some people, and I know I'm that way, you're that way, and I won't speak for you, Nicole, but when you're a creative, like you get turned on by creating. So I think the 3 months or whatever you took, I think is important to just be there. But then there's the other part of you that probably, your creative juices start flowing again. And it's like, how can I also fulfill that part of myself, right? Which I think that's the battle between women. there's an amazing documentary about women artists, about how women, the reason there are very, very few women artists in the world is because women feel that they can't do their art and have children, but men can do that. Right? Men have children and they're able to throw themselves into their art, but women don't feel that they have that luxury because they're taking care, of the children. So it's just fascinating to think about. And I'm excited about these alternative structures. I just can't believe people don't do it. It seems so natural and so easy.
Yeah.
When you go, it's radical. I'm like, really? Because it just feels like, to me, it feels natural.
Well, and it probably speaks to your experience as a mother, knowing what you wish you could have had.
Yeah.
So maybe it's you being in your role and having the experience you had.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And wanting to give me what you didn't get.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Oh, totally. I mean, I think that was probably the most systemic root. And I keep hearing the word natural. And it sounds like you can't imagine it any other way at this point. And the crazy thing is this is absolutely cutting edge innovation, what you just did. And it's not natural in the workplace at all. Any type, really, small companies, big companies. And so I think it's so important to share those benefits too. Like you said, Nicole, of having probably a clearer head of not trying to split time in your mind of, okay, I know Lucy's at home or with someone else and I'm here. I know when I'm working, even if, my mom is here watching or hanging out with Lincoln, for a half a day and I'm on my computer, I just feel just more focused because he's right there. So question for you, did you have a nanny that joined you when you did this, Nicole, for Lucy? Yes. So you did. Okay.
Yes.
So if you were to do this nursery, let's just take this, not to say that it's, who knows how you're planning to do it or what will happen next with your employees that are on maternity leave or getting ready to. But do you envision you could have a nursery that had maybe a caretaker or two and have multiple, babies in there?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, having a nanny here was very crucial. I don't think it would have worked without that because there are days I've tried to work from home and watch Lucy, and those things for me at this point, and she's 16 months now, those things can't happen at the same time. So for me, it was absolutely crucial that there was somebody here watching her, much like it sounds like your mom helps watch Lincoln in those moments.
Yeah, and it's so early for me. Who knows what this will look like down the road, but go ahead, Suzy.
I also think it's important you chose the nanny. Mm-hmm. So it was Nicole's nanny. It wasn't the company's nanny, right?
That's true.
We supported for a little bit the nanny, but it was your nanny.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I've been thinking about, like with this nursery. It's like, hold on, because I know that there are some laws about like daycare centers and things, and I don't know what it is, which I guess we need to look into. I'll have Drew look into that because now we're having two people come back. I'm not sure if the company's hiring the nanny or if they're allowed, if we have the space and they can bring their own nanny.
And I remember we did work through some legal documentation that was, the company, it's my, I think so. I think we did. I think somebody who loves doing all of that, where it was, essentially, it's Nicole, it's your nanny and you're responsible. Yeah, I'm responsible. So I think that the responsibility stayed on me.
Yeah. Which I like that.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't want it. Well, we're not in the daycare business. That's another thing.
The reason that also works, she didn't always, if Lucy was sick, for example, she was able to go to my home and stay with Lucy at my house. So she truly she traveled with me and went with Lucy wherever Lucy needed to be. So there was also flexibility in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my next questions for you is the travel. So work travel, knowing, you are on shoots, you're traveling, and you did bring Lucy most of the time, or did she not go?
No, my first, the timing was, it was awful. My first week back from maternity leave was a shoot. I know. And Suzy wanted me to stay home.
I begged her to not go.
But it was a script that I had kind of helped start working on toward the very, very end of my maternity leave by choice. And Lucy and my husband were going to come, and we went back and forth on how we felt about her traveling. Would she be a mess on the plane? Would she get sick? And at the last moment, we decided it would be Lucy should stay home with my husband. And so I think just the last minute change in it and not bringing her, I was a mess for that first couple days. I'd also never pumped like that for that extended amount of time without breastfeeding Lucy directly. So my first week back from maternity leave, I was away for 4 days straight. So there were tears. There were lots of FaceTiming. Bethany, our spokesperson, actually had her baby with her. She had, I think her baby's about 3 months older than mine, but she had her baby there. So I was giving her little one all the snuggles I could to kind of get my baby fix.
So the last minute, I remember negotiating with Nicole. I'm like, you're not going. And she's like, yes, I am. I'm like, only if Josh and Lucy come too.
I know.
They can go in at the last minute. She goes, they're not coming. I was like, what?
Yeah. And I'm crying like, I'm okay. I promise I'm okay.
I was like, no, you can't do it. We'll be fine. So yeah, we've had some of those moments. And again, I don't even think it was messy. Again, I just keep coming back to the word natural for me. I don't feel there was anything, as far as an employer that I felt was sticky at all. I'm glad someone took care of the legal stuff. I didn't even know that happened. I did think about it a couple of times. It's a testament to the amazing people here.
Yeah, your team has your back there. They know that's not your interest area.
My wish was that you didn't have to give up that much, as much as you would.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel fulfilled. Like I said, I can't say more praises. I think every company should do it. I think you should figure it out. And it works. I will tell you, so the 2 babies that we have right now, Lucy's a girl, and we have 2 boys now coming in. And I had 2 boys, and they're rambunctious. And I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work, Lucy maybe was just an amazing child. She was so easy. So we'll see. This is going to be the next round.
I think her being here and being around so many adults too, and being past, like she has yet to have a stranger danger phase. And I think her being here around so many adults helped her.
Oh yeah.
Helped her be a not better baby, but an easier, more adaptable baby.
I had her in so many executive business meetings. I'm like, woman's going to run the world. She would just sit right there with me, and I would ask her what she thought, and she would just look at me with faces. I'm like, Lucy doesn't like it. Like, we're not going to do this.
Well, it's true story. I mean, even the research supports that babies are learning language in their 3rd trimester. I mean, she's picking up on things that we probably can't even imagine, and she knows nothing else, right? That was her normal. So how fascinating to watch her develop and see what type of impact, this has had on her. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. If you are digging this podcast, please do us a favor and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It just takes a moment, and it means a ton to us. Also, after recording more than 100 episodes, I've created a bit of a cheat sheet on the top 5 things I've learned from Renegades and how they get from idea to action, from dreaming to doing. I will email you the downloadable PDF when you subscribe to my newsletter. Just head to amyjomartin.com and click on Connect with Me. We're working on a special episode to answer some of your questions. So if you have any questions for me, shoot me a note on social media. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Or you can email your question to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. Suzy, my question for you, because if I were an employee or employer and I'm listening to this, do you ever have any little wobbles or concerns about setting up a structure or trying something and then wanting to shift it down the road? Or maybe, what if you all of a sudden have 5 or 10 babies that are on their way at the Poo Pourri office? And do you ever fear like making a decision and experimenting because you're afraid of setting some sort of policy that you're going to want to change down the road? Or how would you navigate that or explain give advice to an employer who wants to try and experiment, but also is concerned about setting some sort of formal policy?
Yeah, I don't mind that. I will tell you, we lost an employee because she had trouble finding childcare during this time, and I felt really sad that we didn't have a structure in place that could help support her. I still feel sad about that, you know. And we tried a little, you know, to help her, and it just didn't work out. We didn't have the space or the setup, so. I still, again, that's one of my remorses too, is that we lost her, and I'm glad she's taking care of herself and her baby. And, you know, I was on a podcast interview yesterday, and somebody said something about problems with being an entrepreneur. And I said, if you have a problem with the problems, then you're not an entrepreneur, because all you're doing is solving problems, right? Mm-hmm. And especially being an innovator. So for me, I mean, it's easy for me to think, like, what happens when we have 10 babies? The other day I said, why do we have so many people pregnant? And then I realized, 75% women.
There you go.
75% young women. I'm like, okay, so this is our new phase. Mm-hmm. And I'm just more curious, like, what's it going to look like? We're looking at a new space now. Like, do we build out a whole nursery? Do we have suites where you have your nanny in there and it's your nanny? So I'm, you know, in the Colby, I'm high risk. So I'm willing to try. And I'm also willing to, if it doesn't work, to say this isn't working. So I don't think I'm the type person that's so solid in those structures. You know, I like policies. I think they're great, but I also think that we need to be, when you're innovating, it's a test, right? And so I love the word experiment. We're seeing how this can work. How can people have more of everything? I do believe the company benefits, so I think it's worth the test. And I think as long as we communicate, we're going to try this. And I think you and I did that. Let's try and see how it works. And it works so much more beautifully than I ever thought in my mind that it would work. Yeah, so I'm not too worried about, I'm not worried at all about if it doesn't work. If there's a loud baby, what do we do? You know, I like the idea of the separate suites.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice?
And I remember
big nursery.
I remember being really mindful too of, for me, my rule was, as soon as Lucy becomes a distraction, that's when my ears would perk up and say, okay, it's time for Lucy to come back into the office. Just like a dog. It's just like a dog. If Lucy ever becomes a distraction, or if she's sick and being really vocal, that's the day that she needs to stay home. So I think I was just so grateful. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't, that Lucy was behaving and wasn't affecting negatively the work environment. And I think with the rules of the company, whenever you talk about what if it becomes 10 people, I have seen really smart, career-driven women have to choose between work and baby. And I would just, as an employer, imagine I would hate for 10 really amazing female employees to leave the company because there wasn't an opportunity for them. They had to make that choice. Mm-hmm. So
absolutely. I mean, look at the situation that you're in, and the amount of time that's given to this topic isn't enough, really. You know, just the word experimenting keeps coming up, but that makes it kind of a safe little petri dish of, okay, all right, we're going to try this. So if you're listening and you're thinking about implementing something like this, but maybe you don't feel as far on the spectrum of innovation as Suzy and Nicole with Poo Pourri, maybe just try to have a little, you can add some guardrails with, this is an experiment, and make that known, but trying, because you ended up finding so many benefits, and women are leaving the workforce. You know, they're finding different things to do. So like you said, Nicole, you're really at risk of, if you ask someone to choose one or the other, you know, that's just going to be a potential liability for talent at the company, especially if you look at percentages of having 75% women. So I so appreciate how this has been navigated. And I keep thinking to myself, I know you got some photos and videos, but I wish there was a documentary on this. And maybe, I don't know.
We should have put a GoPro on her the whole time.
We should have. It would have been so great. And you know what's funny? I keep going back to the word natural because it didn't even feel risky, like we're doing anything wild.
No.
Isn't that weird?
I think that's just Poo Pourri.
I guess so. It's like I hear that it's radical for the world, but it just felt so natural. And I'm excited about these extra spaces. I'm thinking now, I will say as an employer, I think it is vital to have a room because Nicole has quite a big office. So her nanny, so she had an office with a desk, and then what used to be like a conference table or couch, like a little sitting room in her office, became, you put like a little bookshelf that was see-through in between it to separate the space. And the nanny had a rocking chair and like a little play space, and then a place for Lucy to sleep. And Nicole also had little signs for the door that was like baby sleeping. And I know everyone honored that. It was like, oh, okay, the baby's sleeping. Don't go in there.
And I was able to put a curtain on my door for when I was breastfeeding.
Yeah. So I think some of those things, I think logistics is probably the tougher thing. It's like, I even think an executive should give up their office so that can happen if they want to try it and see how it works. And you're also super responsible. So I like what you were talking about. I didn't realize you were so cognizant. So thank you. That's the reason probably I felt no distraction ever. But that might be conversations that we have with people.
Yes.
Just like we do with dogs.
Right.
Exactly
like
so
that.
Silly.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like your dog's causing a distraction.
Your dog peed on the floor, your baby peed on the floor.
And I will say there was a lot of playing with Lucy, but I never felt as employer as if that shouldn't be happening. It just it felt good and natural. And I know that, Amy Jo, we've talked a lot in the past, and I think I shared with you, in some Asian cultures and some Hispanic cultures, you'll go into a restaurant and the whole family's sitting right there. The kids are doing their schoolwork. I don't know if you've ever gone into so there are cultures that the kids just kind of come along, and I think we've lost that.
Yeah.
Like we're in Western society, or what I grew up, the kids just go to daycare, which is it's always been horrendous to me to think about. So yeah.
Amy Jo, you said something earlier. We were talking about women making the choice to leave. I think it's also, going back to my conversation with Suzy, and I didn't even know what we were doing was an option. So I want to encourage women, if they're in a workplace where they feel like they're going to have to make a choice, ask for what you want before you make that decision to leave. Ooh. We have had employees that have left to stay with their children because they thought that was the only option. And so there wasn't a conversation before that departure happened. So I think we can maybe think that that's the only option is choosing one or the other. So just before you leave, if you want to stay, ask for what you want.
That's huge. Oh, what a good point. Because we do assume, because it's been the way it's been done, right? And so I believe that's also why I just want to shine the biggest light I can on this case study, because seeing is believing on both sides, on the mom and the parent side, but also on the employer side. And so Suzy, do you feel that this process has helped you heal a bit in your experience with, having not as much time as you would have liked with your kids after they were born?
Wow. Yeah, I get teary again. I just don't think you see, you just don't notice till you're older, like, oh shit, I missed that, So I do believe it is, because I do believe that we're setting precedents. I know I feel great in our relationship. I feel great. I feel like, yes, you had a baby. It's awesome. We got to create some alternative structures, and I feel good. I don't feel that I took you away from a part of your life, and I don't ever want to do that. Mm-hmm. So, I think those are slow heals, but I think that the way that I heal is by leading by example, like this. And then, oh yeah, okay, we've got 2 more people coming back. How do we do that? And letting them stay home with children. And then so if we all just keep doing these little steps, eventually maybe we can shift an entire culture where we can start creating really alternative structures. One of the things I've told you is we've got to stop doing what we've been doing. I'm really clear with that. The way that we've been living is actually killing the planet. It's killing ourselves inside. There's a lot of things that we really have to radically shift. So I'm all up for trying this. And what I hope to see in my lifetime is that this is an entire paradigm shift. So that's what will really heal. Yes, I got to heal, just my love for Nicole and getting to see that she didn't have to sacrifice as much as I did was healing in itself. But I also want to see it on even a larger scale, that women are prioritizing themselves. They're prioritizing those relationships. They're realizing they still can have a creative outlet and still be a loving, caring mother, that those can all coexist. But as we said at the beginning, not the way we've been doing it.
And it is, if you look at the real macro impact of women being more involved in building influence in the world and having power and a voice, and those feminine traits being more weighted in our society, which this is a big way to enable that and accelerate it. That does change the world. I mean, we look at the studies that have been done, and we've started to skew so far masculine in terms of traits of leaders that, we do need to shift, and we do need more of the feminine mentality. And I think that this is a huge impact on the entire world, potentially not just the individual. And there's so many upsides. So I will never forget you saying, when I said, "Can you have it all?" And you said, "No, not the way we've been doing it." And so what more motivation do we need? Because you did it. You've shown that this is possible. So thank you so much for sharing your story, for being brave and having that conversation that day, not knowing where this was going to lead, and leading by example.
One of the things I was just thinking about, I think you were on maternity leave and Supernatural was being developed. And Jamie Ditto was helping me. She had been on maternity leave. She had just had Harriet. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I need some help. Will you come over and help?" And she said, "Well, I've got Harriet. I'll have to arrange sitters." And I go, "Why don't you bring her?" And I think that's when you were on maternity. Were you still gone?
Yes, you texted me a picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to bring Lucy to the office.
Yeah.
Yes, I
that
remember
was my inspiration. So she brought Harriet, and at every meeting, it was just the greatest joy seeing Supernatural be birthed with these 6 women sitting at a table, literally passing Harriet around day by day. And I was like, there's zero distraction here. And even Jamie, now she has a concept called Mothership that she's doing for, she was so inspired, like a workspace for mothers, that it was so inspiring to her, and it was just one of those fixes. I'm like, just bring her. I love babies. And I believe that's when it first dawned on me, like, hold on, we can.
Mm-hmm.
I know that companies have nurseries. I think Google has a nursery. But what I'd like to point out also, what we did different that I think is more vital, because I don't think a nursery at a company is that much different than a daycare. Mm-hmm. What I think that you did when you had an in-suite, right, nanny with you, like you're spending more time with Lucy than if she's just downstairs and you can go during your breaks to see her.
Yeah, because that would feel a lot like dropping a baby off and then not seeing them for 8 hours. I was seeing her often throughout the day, hearing her. She could hear my voice.
Yeah. So I do think that's important. So when we look at this new space, I think these suites are what's important. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Because that seemed to work so well instead of just nursery. Yeah.
And having Lucy in meetings too. That's a big component that you're probably not going to see in a Google or whatever company.
Yeah, because the babies are contained. Lucy was around all the time, but her nanny did stay with her. So Sydney hovered, which was so nice. So it wasn't like Lucy was just, people were just passing her around. What I appreciated, and we need to remember this, her nanny hovered around her quite a bit to make sure she's okay. Because that's another thing, I wouldn't want any sort of, having been molested as a child, I'm super paranoid about that. Not saying that would happen in an office, but I felt really good knowing that Sydney's around. And sometimes, I know that I'm not going to abuse Lucy. So I would tell Sydney, like, go eat your lunch. I've got her, and she trusted me and you trusted me. And she would do that. But generally speaking, the other time she was with her.
She was always with her.
And I think that's an important part too.
And it's peace of mind probably too, in case, Lucy, if she gets fussy and you need someone to take her, she's right there, Nicole, versus you having to leave the meeting and be disruptive.
And that would happen, and Nicole always did that. I'd be like, "She's fine," and I'm bouncing her, and she'd be like, "No, let me get Sydney," Yeah, but I think that's the other key. So not just a nursery; it's literally this in-suite, and the babies are integrated throughout the company.
That's a good distinction.
Yeah.
I remember in meetings, it took me a little bit to get comfortable, but with breastfeeding Lucy or pumping, if Lucy wasn't at the office that day, I remember excusing myself for the first few times and then not wanting to miss out. I just remember not wanting breastfeeding or pumping to take me away from something happening in the business. I didn't want to miss anything. So everybody was so supportive of, I would bring Lucy into the office. I had my kind of cover up, and I would feed Lucy and Lucy would leave, or if I would pump you, it was in the background of those meetings, the pump noise, Amy Jeff.
Yes.
Well, also Lucy, she would be like,
yeah, you can hear
Yep.
She'd be like smacking, and it was, we have men and women in the meetings. So it wasn't like it was just a bunch of women sitting around the way Supernatural was. It's very mixed, and I don't think what I appreciate is I think people actually got more comfortable with it. This is natural. Again, it's natural. Yeah. We shouldn't be freaked out.
Yeah.
Like, this happens, people. Come on. Women should be feeding their babies, and they can do it right here. We're cool.
Exactly.
But nobody had to bend any schedules, which was amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you weren't locked into a little room that that's not natural at all. And you think about the amount of time you spend nursing. There was a statistic, I think it's 1,800 hours a year, which is pretty much right near a full-time 40-hour-a-week job. And it's not right to be stuck in a little room or not be able to just live your life. It's also not efficient. It's very inefficient. So yeah, this is just, it's progress like this. And this is one scenario that can be shared to give other people courage to, start small, like you did, Suzy, with realizing just now, you started with a meeting and someone coming in and you just said, well, bring her. And then that led to, wait, we could do this with Nicole. And you just had an open mind and you started with just a natural instinct, and look at where it led. So huge. And now you're talking about sweets. So
thank you for shining a light on it. I didn't realize how special it is. I know it was to me and to you, but I didn't even think about it. So I appreciate the conversation. I think we should be having more.
Yeah. And I thank you, Suzy. I don't know what it would have been like to have made that choice. So thank you for bringing it to the table. I wasn't prepared for the solution you brought, but I now can't imagine it having been any other way. Yeah. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, I've got tears over here. Oh, you know how many women are going to go ask for the meeting and bring this up? It's going to be awesome.
Go ahead and tell their boss to call me.
Yeah. And
I'll tell them. Yeah, we'll talk to them and let them know how it worked, and amazing. And we're going into phase 2 now. I think we have babies coming back in probably like 6 weeks.
Yeah. I love calling it an experiment. I think that's a great way to soften. If you're asking, say, hey, I have an idea that I'd like to do a 5-week experiment and see how this goes.
Yeah.
And then adjust from there. I love calling it an experiment.
Yeah, I do too. It's fun.
Awesome. What a powerful experiment. Thank you both so much for sharing. And I can't wait to hear about phase 2. And we'll have you come back on and you can share and try to get the documentary. Just get some video and, we need to expose this to the world.
Yeah, we do. We need to, I guess, tell stories about it. We always forget.
I know.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being brave and having the conversation and bringing light to it. Yeah, we need it more.
Absolutely. And right back at you. You made it happen. Hey, everyone. everyone. Thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?